consistent, stay in the right mindset, work on ourselves as entrepreneurs, talking about addictions and how they prevent us from connecting with people, and kind of a topic along these lines. I'm going to talk about it a bit today. I have some past experience with this line of topic that isn't great, but it was something that I learned a lot from. I grew up as a child, kind of highly medicated. I was in 90s child when every teacher, if you talk too much or whatever, suggested that you get put on medication, and parents listened for lack of better knowledge or not knowing what else to do. But I kind of, at a younger age in high school, found alcohol, drugs, sex problems that I developed around just kind of having a tendency to medicate or to look for ways to cope that weren't always healthy. And this continued for years of my life and kind of consumed a lot of my time and a lot of my focus, and hurt me in a lot of areas of life. My wife till this day still says that I'd probably be dead in a ditch or in prison if she hadn't been with me. And I think she's probably right. I think it's important to find the best version of ourselves and be willing to work and form who we want to be, and chase that progress, right? So I think a lot of times these issues really do hold us back in life. In this video, David talks about how it really prevents us from making the connections that we want to, that are important in life and in skill sets and business. And these things oftentimes prevent us from becoming who we really could be, or being the best version of ourselves. And it doesn't have to be an addiction to an actual substance. I think the harder ones to break are oftentimes the smaller ones that we don't even realize we have, which a lot of times is addictions to our phones or to social media, to internet, to high-speed entertainment, whatever it may be. And then people really struggle these days to be by ourselves, right? Like, we don't spend a lot of time actually thinking, or a lot of time not really thinking. I don't know about you guys, I find myself addicted to this entertainment and to my own thoughts. Like, it's hard to actually just completely stop everything. Because we're so used to moving fast and to trying to be doing something for the sake of progress or entertainment, right? So I think this is why we're constantly shopping, why we're constantly on YouTube, we're constantly looking for something better. And there's reasons why this can be good, because we're always trying to find a way to better our lives or whatever it may be. But there's reasons why it's bad, because it prevents us from actually connecting with people that matter, or building the relationships, or being able to communicate how we need to, right? And in our world, making money online, your income is kind of directly proportionate to the relationships that you have, or your influence, right? And to your effect that you have on other people, your impact. And many times when we hear the word influence, I think it almost has this negative connotation, or it did in my mind. Like, you think of like a bad influence, or like influencing someone, like persuading them or coercing them to do something that they may not even want to. That's not what we really mean when we use that word here. We need more of like the good influence that you can have on someone to be a better version of themselves, or to inspire them to want more, do more, be more in the world, whatever it may be. Or to seek a higher level of fulfillment or happiness through entrepreneurship or self-employment, or financially, or time free, or whatever that is really. So for years and years, I couldn't really imagine myself doing anything more than like an hourly wage or a salary job, because this is what I had experienced in the past. It's what I knew. It's what I had already done. And it's kind of hard at that point to picture something that you haven't done before, or to imagine what it would be like to be in more direct control of your income, or to work for yourself. But it doesn't mean that I was made for that. And I kind of always knew that, but it was just those limiting beliefs that I had that made it hard for me to visualize something else more, right? So ideally, in this line of work, you're helping people to see that these things are possible. You're helping them to visualize that future. You're helping to future pace the possibilities that could be down the road, and helping them to overcome their fears and their subconscious beliefs that maybe they're wanting to learn, or leave behind and learn new ones of, right? Because these things, these fear that we have, or the beliefs we have now, are oftentimes the biggest things that are keeping us stuck. It's not the physical obstacles of time or money or whatever the things we think it is. Those are oftentimes the byproduct of the mindset, or the other issues, the beliefs that we truly have. So what if you could create a living, helping other people broaden their horizons or see their true potential, or helping them find the tools and the skill sets, the mindset, the motivation, whatever they need to be able to change their situation, right? You can and you will. You guys are all on your way here now. If you're here with us, then you took that first step to actually learning and wanting to create a better life. And now it's just about keeping one foot in front of the other, continuing to take those steps and staying consistent with it. So I'm going to check out some comments. I'm going to pull them up, but go ahead and tell us what you think. Is there an addiction that maybe you haven't faced? I think a lot of times it's not the substance type ones. It's more of the abstract, harder ones to see. It's us having these tendencies to cope with food, with TV, with the internet, with Facebook, whatever it may be. These things that kind of eat our lives silently and aren't as harmful, so it's harder to identify that they're actually even a problem, or we see them as just a normal thing because everybody else does it, right? So when I want to talk a little bit, I kind of always spin off into tangents a little bit, but I want to talk a little about why I think people do this. We tend to always go, these addictions a lot of times are coping mechanisms more than anything, right? The things that we turn to run to get some escape oftentimes end up running us. And it's to avoid this suffering in life or to deal with it. And a lot of times, like, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to go out there and have coping mechanisms, so we have to have positive ones that actually do something good for us or truly actually relieve the stress or help us to grow in some way, right? Like working out or something that's a positive release that actually yields some kind of good results and not just like consumes time and energy and like trains our brain in the opposite direction. So a lot of times this avoidance of suffering leads to more of it, or a lack of other things that create suffering. And I mean, even with the right coping mechanisms and doing the right things, there's always going to be suffering. I'm not saying that that's going to go away, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. You shouldn't always be avoiding it. I think sometimes the things that we're uncomfortable with, that we try to run away from, or what we need more of, just like in the gym, typically the workouts, the muscle groups that you avoid are the ones you probably need the most attention on, right? Like me back in the day, I always avoided legs and back, and now I know that's where I end up actually needing to focus. That's where my weakness became, right? A lot of times the things that we don't do in life are the ones we regret more than what we do. Like I've made some dumb mistakes that I do regret in ways, but in the end, I mean, they make us who we are today and they make us stronger. And people spend their whole lives trying to avoid suffering. And some suffering we should avoid that makes sense, like physical or abusive or whatever it may be. But some things that are challenging or uncomfortable is truly where your growth is. Like that's where you become a stronger or better person or learn lessons and actually grow as an individual. And that's when your business grows. So I think that these should sometimes be what we're heading towards instead. So we challenge you guys to go towards the uncomfortable, like to stop running from fear and face what scares you, to conquer the uncomfortable, make it your comfort zone. We challenge you guys to be different. We want to help other people to swim upstream, because in the end, becoming self-employed isn't the normal. You know what I mean? Becoming an entrepreneur isn't what everybody else is doing. So it's great that you guys are here. You're taking those first steps to making it happen. But if we think more and maybe talk less, and we get the practice, we put in the reps, we put in the time each day, and we start thinking more about what we want to and focusing on the good habits that we want to create, and leaving these old ones behind, or replacing those thought patterns, and become who we really want to be and find the right people, the right environment to grow with. That's what really leads to this change, right? It's staying consistent with that. It's waking up every day and making that decision that you still want to go in that same direction and not veering off course, because it's so easy to do. There's distractions at every turn, every day in life. There's always going to be reasons why you can't do something, or reasons why it gets difficult, but there's always reasons why we really have to stay in touch with why we really want this, right? So I challenge you guys to focus on this every day. Like find some time where you actually set aside to consistently work on yourself, and just focus on becoming a little bit better than yesterday. It could be reading a book a little bit each day. It could be watching some kind of video training. You always have to kind of balance, in my mind, like your motivation with your skill sets, and working on your mindset and your willingness to take action. And a lot of times these don't come from within us. It's not just that we like look within and like think about it and become a certain way. I have to like receive that from somewhere. I have to find these resources that are going to help fuel the fire, right? Because the amount that we can achieve in a few years' time is astounding. Like your life could be vastly different a year down the road or a few years down the road than it is today, but it's going to take daily action. It's going to take small steps that add up to that, right? And sometimes it doesn't feel very productive at first. It tends to be a little bit exhausting when we feel like we're not seeing the results, but it's because you have to learn to look at it at a bigger scale, or look at where you could be a year down the road, or set mile markers of when you assess at 90 days or 6 months or a year, and look back and actually tell that then you see that growth, and it's a lot easier. But if you focus on those daily steps, then you're not going to drive yourself crazy. Right. And a lot of times we tend to think in terms of what we have experienced or what we know how to do. We're so used to like just going off our instincts or going off what we've known, and our best thinking got us where we are today. Right. So if we want to be somewhere different tomorrow or down the road, we have to learn to think differently. We have to learn to adopt someone else's plan that's worked for them, or learn the right mindset and learn these right habits. And like you said, reading books, taking courses, letting go of beliefs that don't serve our goals. These are what in the end allows us to make the change. It's the daily things that we do that lead to the results. It's not what you do on the weekend for a little bit or when you can find the time. It's more about making that time consistently, making those habits happen so that it's at that point facilitated over time, and it's not overwhelming if you ease into it that way. If you focus on just sacrificing a little bit each day, it adds up in the end. Right? So focusing on progress, not results. Because results are that. They're the results of your progress. They're the results, the byproduct of the work that you've done. So focus on learning how to do things properly, focusing on developing those skill sets and the mindsets, and then the fruits of your labor will multiply. Right? If we don't learn how to plant those seeds and then nurture them and help them grow, they may not survive the winter, right? Or whatever analogy we want to use. So I kind of ranted today, but I hope you guys are ready to rock the week. Stay motivated, stay in gear with us, stay legendary. Thank you for joining us today. And if you need us, get in touch. Join us tomorrow. Rod will be here, 10 a.m. EST every day. Check out Dave's video coming out today at noon. He's going to talk more about how those addictions prevent us from making connections and how that can improve things if you identify those, if you get clarity in what your problems really are and what's holding you back. This is something that has been really helpful to me to hear Dave speak about. He's talked to us with our meetings that we do each week a lot about things like this. And it's the abstract stuff that we don't realize. Like I had these past addictions to substances, and when I got away from that stuff, like I almost just thought that like I didn't have problems anymore. And then eventually you realize that you kind of still do have these addictions. They've just manifested in other areas, like in work and you're out of balance there, or in food, or in internet use, or whatever it may be. And you see these other issues that you have that are actually like eating your time and your focus and causing your relationships to suffer, or things to go out of balance, or preventing you from connecting, or for in one way or another holding you back. And it's like he was saying recently, and I've probably quoted several times because I love it now, it's finding that balance and that self-care. It's getting those things right that creates the space that we need to like become the best version of ourselves. It's all these little things that you tweak to find the time to really like be getting more done that adds up in the end, right?